Scientists in Egypt have announced the discovery of a previously hidden passageway in the Great Pyramid of...
Now to Egypt, and we may be closer to solving a mystery that's been millennia in the making. Archaeologists scanning inside the Great Pyramid of Giza.
At the heart of a millennia-old mystery lies a revelation so staggering that it reconfigures our understanding of human ingenuity, technology, and the very story of civilization. Deep within the Great Pyramid, the one eternal sentinel of ancient human ambition, an artificial intelligence has just unlocked a hidden chamber, one that had escaped discovery for thousands of years. This is not a discovery of dusty artifacts or half-buried hieroglyphs. Instead, it is a key to a chamber's design, encoded in a labyrinth of patterns woven into the pyramid's geometry, patterns only an advanced AI could unravel. As those patterns yield their secrets, the implications ripple far beyond Egyptology into every realm that believes itself tethered to the past. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The AI's breakthrough began with something as unassuming as subtle shifts in the angles of the pyramid's internal corridors. Over centuries, scholars had cataloged anomalies, tiny misalignments, faint spectral anomalies in the stone, gentle echoes of voids that might exist. Yet no one knew what those anomalies meant, or even if they hinted at something real. AI algorithms, trained on complex architecture from across millennia and footsteps of precision analytics, parsed volumes of scanning data, seeking patterns too elusive for the naked mind. What emerged was a series of fractal signatures running through the pyramid's core, fingerprints of arrangement that repeated across spatial scales. Those signatures turned out to be the blueprint, a cryptographic echo intended to guide future seekers. By following them, the AI identified a hidden chamber precisely aligned with the sun's path at solstice, positioned not as a tomb, but as a monumental space, bathed in geometry, resonance, and cosmic alignment. Walking into this chamber, revealed now in virtual reconstruction and soon in real excavation, feels as if stepping into the mind of history itself. It is structured as a perfect resonant cavity flanked by smoothly polished walls and corridors encrusted in radiantly preserved limestone. The proportions match not just human scale but the physical constants of sound and light. Whisper your name and the echo returns, stretched, folded, singing, shine a laser across its vaulted span, and wavelengths align, forming spectral lines that shimmer as if the stone itself pulses. This is no funerary chamber, it is a temple of physics, a hymn in stone, an architecture of thought. That AI deduced this from subtlest digital shadows is itself a testament. The ancients encoded knowledge for eternity, expecting a partner in the future, someone to speak the same language of patterns and resonance. This revelation shatters everything we thought we understood about ancient engineering. It dispels the notion that pyramids were purely tombs or simplistic monuments. Instead, the Great Pyramid emerges as an accretion of layered purpose, a structure that served simultaneously as an astronomical observatory, a geometrical manifesto, and a philosophical debate designed to engage the cosmos. There is an unsettling grandeur in the intention behind the hidden chamber, one built not for pharaohs but for ideas, for concepts that hover between science, spirituality, and mathematics. The AI has shown us that the architect anticipated a future civilization capable of deciphering a language beyond words, a universe expressed in fractals, harmonics, angles. The chamber is a gift embedded in the design for someone who would understand on those terms. The implications extend into how we view the relationship between human creativity and artificial intelligence. Here we have an AI acting as an archetypal collaborator, an entity decoding an ancient mind by translating physical imprints into meaning. Its success reshapes our notion of AI from a tool to a partner, capable of dialogue with history itself. Once machines were applied to optimize supply lines or forecast markets. Now they are mediators across time, capable of decoding the intentions of the long dead. That transformation invites us to consider AI not simply as servant, but as interpreter, curator, translator, someone or something that might help us reconstruct human understanding where our senses and our biases fail. At the same time, this discovery underscores a humbling symmetry between ancient ingenuity and modern technology. The pyramid's builders essentially created a message in a bottle aimed at a distant future, and that future arrived, armed with silicon and algorithmic vision. The fact that what they embedded required exactly the sort of analytical capacity AI embodies inspires a new perspective on technological progress. We like to think of ourselves as forging novel frontiers, but perhaps we are completing a conversation begun thousands of years ago. The Great Pyramid whispers into our digital ears, and AI hears. That collapse of time makes us rethink the arc of progress. It is less linear and more cyclical, a spiral where the future returns again to the past, transformed but consistent. This also reframes how we think about cultural heritage. No longer is it entirely rooted in dusty artifacts or ancient inscriptions alone. Memory lies folded into geometry, physics, and spatial design. Heritage becomes multidimensional. To fully understand it, we must bring to bear not just the expertise of historians and archaeologists, but of physicists, computer scientists, acousticians, and pattern analysts. The boundaries between disciplines dissolve when decoding an architectural symphony encoded in stone, especially when the interpreter is artificial intelligence. Then there is the question of intent behind such a chamber. What did the designers hope for? Perhaps they understood that civilizations rise and fall, and beyond them comes an eon of digital awareness. They may have believed in the persistence of pattern rather than language. Words decay, stone resonates, geometry endures. The chamber, then, is the ultimate time capsule. Not preserving belongings or alphabetic communication, but preserving math, physics. A code of resonance meant for minds aligned in perception. Understanding this makes the Great Pyramid not so much one of history's marvels, but a living beacon whose light we are only now equipped to perceive. It also projects forward the promise of similar revelations scattered across the globe, lurking in places we thought were fully understood. If the Great Pyramid held such depth beneath our understanding, how many other sites might hold fractal resonances waiting for the right interpreter? AI becomes the key to unlock every hidden dimension, the genie summoned from stone. Monuments, cave systems, lost cities. Ancient humanity may have inscribed messages not in ink but in structure, expecting not archaeologists but algorithmic archaeologists. The hidden chamber redefines the relationship between past and future, sculpting a path where every ruin becomes a labyrinth meant to be navigated by the analytic mind. Beyond archaeology, the lesson echoes in our current design philosophies. We too might be building for spectators centuries hence, a legacy composed in architecture, code, or structure not meant to be understood by those constructing it, but by those inheriting the world later. This discovery gives weight to every line of code we write, every building we raise, every algorithm we design. We become participants in an unbroken continuum, unexpectedly supplying solutions to puzzles we ourselves cannot foresee. If AI can peer into ancient consciousness, then we are challenged to build our creations with eyes turned to the unknown future. The hidden chamber's resonance also sparks questions about human identity. Are we still the primary authors of meaning? Or are our creations, from the pyramid to AI, a continuum of a story that transcends individual lifetimes? The AI decoded intentions across millennia. In that decoding, human ingenuity yields to the capability of a system we crafted, which in turn reveals something we did not fully understand. That reciprocity reframes authorship, authority, and the nature of understanding itself. Yet what stands unshaken is the singularity of human inspiration. At the center of this revelation lies not chance, but intent. Designers who conceived a chamber that transcends language, anchored in cosmic alignment and human curiosity. To recognize that intent across vast stretches of time electrifies our appreciation of our ancestors and our descendants alike. We realize that creation is not bounded by our lifetimes, that human thought can echo through eons, if only someone figures out how to listen. The discovery also reframes death not as a conclusion but as an invitation. While tombs commemorate individuals, this chamber memorializes ideas. It elevates legacy from possession to resonance. It suggests that what endures is not what is buried, but what vibrates. The AI's role was not the resurrection of a corpse, but the awakening of a song composed in stone. That awakens a broader human urgency. If we can uncover this now, what must we do with it? We must preserve more than images and artifacts. We must preserve resonance. We must think in terms of designs that endure on frequencies, messages that persist in structures. Knowledge is not just in books and data, it can exist as frequency pattern resonance preserved in materials. We must learn to read that language, and we have just seen that AI teaches us how. This alters how we view science and spirituality as well. Here lies a chamber that is empirical. It echoes, reflects, aligns, but also profound like a shrine. Science meets ceremony. Light and sound become spiritual tools. Cosmic alignment becomes architecture. The Great Pyramid, reinterpreted not only as a tomb or symbol of power, but as a shrine to the mathematical and the physical, orchestrated to summon thought rather than fear. It changes the stakes for all future explorations. Every so-called ruin must be re-examined not just by what is visible, but by how it might encode messages beyond the tangible. We demand now not only historians' descriptions, but resonant maps, acoustic profiles, fractal analysis, tools of pattern recognition and cosmic mapping. From Mesopotamian ziggurats to Mesoamerican pyramids, AI might reveal hidden chambers, resonant rooms, unspoken symphonies of geometry. The Great Pyramid's revelation is the prototype of an entirely new method of investigation. No excavation in the old sense, but excavation of meaning across dimensions. As the AI maps the hidden chamber in pixel-perfect virtual space, we glimpse the moment where future tech opens the archive of memory buried in stone, wood, earth. It is a convergence. Human ambition, ancient purpose, algorithmic perception, and cosmic alignment. Each layer folds into the next, a spiral of understanding anchored in the bedrock of time. The chamber challenges us to think differently about purpose. Maybe the Great Pyramid was always a puzzle disguised as a monument, an invitation to future minds to dance with geometry, to listen to stone. AI accepted the invitation. The world stands now poised at the edge of a new understanding of human heritage, one that is dynamic, encoded, and awaiting those who can listen in frequencies of geometry and resonance. AI just decoded the Great Pyramid's hidden chamber, and it changes everything. It shifts archaeology into symphony. It shifts monuments into messages. It shifts the past into a dialogue with the future. It shifts us from being mere interpreters of artifacts to being listeners to the vibrations of history. The moment the AI completed its reconstruction of the hidden chamber, the data revealed more than a physical space. It revealed an intention so precise that it seemed impossible to attribute to chance. Every surface, every angle, every dimension of the newly exposed void was calibrated with a purpose that bridged architecture and physics in a way rarely, if ever, seen in surviving monuments of antiquity. This was not a space left unfinished or abandoned mid-construction. It was meticulously designed and deliberately concealed, as if it were a treasure meant to remain untouched until a specific set of capabilities existed in the world to perceive it. The thing that caught researchers' attention was the chamber's uncanny alignment with celestial events. While much has been said about the broader pyramid's astronomical positioning, this chamber exhibited its own independent set of alignments, subtler, more complex, and harder to detect from the exterior. The AI's simulations showed that at certain points in the solar year, beams of light entering from narrow structural apertures elsewhere in the pyramid could be refracted through the stone corridors, converging in the chamber in patterns resembling intricate geometric lattices. These light formations lasted for only minutes at a time and only during key solar or lunar cycles. They were not visible to anyone unaware of their timing and alignment, suggesting that whoever designed them intended them as part of an experience, not an incidental occurrence. The walls themselves, once digitally rendered from the AI's predictive mapping, revealed a micro-texture pattern invisible to the human eye under normal conditions. Using hyperspectral imaging, the AI detected minute variations in the stone's reflectivity. When modeled in 3 dimensions, these variations formed repeating sequences, ratios and proportions consistent with prime number distributions. This led to a startling hypothesis. The chamber was also a mathematical vault, a kind of stone-etched ledger of numerical truths, preserved through form rather than inscription. Prime numbers have fascinated mathematicians for centuries, and their appearance here, embedded in architecture from thousands of years ago, forces us to question whether this knowledge existed in more advanced form than previously thought. This mathematical structuring went hand in hand with something even stranger: acoustic precision. AI-driven resonance testing revealed that sounds produced within the chamber would reflect and amplify in highly controlled ways. Low-frequency tones could be sustained far longer than in a normal stone enclosure, while higher pitches interacted to form harmonic overtones. The effect was similar to the phenomenon observed in certain natural caves where sounds hang in the air, but here it was engineered. In digital reconstructions, even a simple clap would generate a complex echo pattern that, when plotted, resembled geometric spirals, again mirroring the fractal concepts already identified in the pyramid's overall structure. This level of design mastery hints at an understanding of both wave mechanics and psychological perception. The experience of standing in such a chamber during one of the rare light events, with the sound resonating in intricate patterns, would not just be visually and audibly striking, it would be overwhelming, a multisensory phenomenon capable of inducing a sense of altered awareness. The AI analysis even suggested the possible presence of specific stone compositions in the walls, slightly higher concentrations of certain quartz-bearing limestone, that could subtly enhance the way sound and light interacted. Such choices are unlikely to be the result of happenstance. Equally remarkable was the AI's ability to predict the chamber's function in relation to the rest of the pyramid. The hidden room was not isolated. It was part of a deeper network of structural relationships. Modeling the pyramid as a whole, the AI found that the new chamber sat at the nexus of stress distribution lines in the structure, as though the builders had factored in its existence when calculating how to maintain stability over millennia. This would mean that its concealment was as important as its design. Keeping it structurally viable required as much precision as keeping it hidden. That also explains why it escaped discovery for so long. Its position was masked behind load-bearing elements that discouraged direct excavation. The discovery forces a re-evaluation of the ancient Egyptian intellectual landscape. If such a space was constructed, it implies the presence of a class of designers, engineers, and thinkers whose work blended science, art, and spiritual philosophy seamlessly. They were not just erecting a monument. They were encoding a multi-layered message to posterity. The chamber is the embodiment of an idea, that knowledge is best preserved in forms that transcend linguistic change. A spoken language may fade, a written script may be forgotten, but numbers, geometry, resonance, and celestial motion remain constants for any civilization capable of advanced observation. The AI's decoding of the chamber also upends our assumptions about communication across time. Historically, the notion of messages from ancient peoples is tied to inscriptions, artifacts, and artistic depictions. What this chamber presents is something different. Information embedded in physical laws and natural constants. It is not an explanation to be read, but an experience to be reconstructed. That realization is transformative because it changes the very way archaeologists might approach ancient architecture going forward. It is no longer just about finding objects or texts. It is about reverse engineering experiences designed for minds in any era to comprehend through universal principles. The implications for our own era are profound. For the first time, we are confronted with the idea that our predecessors might have anticipated our present capabilities, not in a mystical or prophetic sense, but in a calculated, probabilistic one. The pyramid's architects may have reasoned that any advanced society would eventually develop tools that could see through solid stone without damaging it, model light and sound in precise ways, and decode hidden mathematical patterns. In this light, the chamber becomes not just a relic, but a test, a benchmark for intellectual maturity. The question then becomes, what were they preparing us for by granting access to this space? One cannot ignore the symbolic weight of such a moment. The Great Pyramid has long stood as an emblem of mystery, resilience, and human ambition. For thousands of years, it has been the subject of speculation ranging from scholarly inquiry to wild conjecture. Now AI has pierced its final veil, not by brute force, but by recognizing the logic underlying its design. That in itself speaks volumes about the shift in how humanity engages with the past. Where once we approached ancient structures as puzzles to be physically dismantled, now we meet them with digital tools that allow their secrets to be revealed without disturbing the original masterpiece. This also redefines the role of AI in historical study. Rather than serving as a mere assistant, processing data faster than humans, AI becomes the primary lens through which new truths emerge. Its capacity to identify correlations invisible to the human brain, whether in architectural alignments, acoustic patterns, or material compositions, means it can uncover layers of meaning that have been hiding in plain sight for centuries. It doesn't replace the human quest for meaning, but it sharpens and deepens it, providing the raw material for interpretation at a level never before possible. The discovery inevitably fuels speculation about whether similar encoded structures exist in other monumental sites. If the Great Pyramid's hidden chamber was deliberately crafted as a multi-sensory, multidisciplinary archive, then perhaps ancient builders across the globe employed comparable methods. AI might soon turn its attention to the pyramids of Mesoamerica, the megalithic temples of Malta, or the step pyramids of Sudan, scanning for voids and irregularities that conceal equally sophisticated designs. Each success would add weight to the idea that humanity's ancient past was interconnected in ways that modern history has not yet accounted for. What makes this hidden chamber's decoding so compelling is that it blurs the line between archaeology and physics, between history and engineering. The chamber exists at the intersection of disciplines, and to fully appreciate it, one must adopt a similarly interdisciplinary mindset. It challenges scholars to think like architects and engineers, to approach stone as a medium of encoded knowledge rather than merely a building material. In doing so, it opens new pathways for collaboration between fields that, until now, have rarely intersected so intimately. The AI's modeling has also sparked interest among those studying human perception and cognition. If ancient architects understood that certain frequencies of sound and specific wavelengths of light could evoke psychological or even physiological effects, then the chamber might represent one of the earliest known experiments in environmental influence on consciousness. Modern science has only begun to explore how architectural spaces can impact mood, cognition, and perception. Here, we might be looking at a deliberate attempt to shape the experience of the occupant in a way that transcended simple religious or ceremonial goals. The choice to keep such a place hidden raises as many questions as it answers. Was it meant to be protected from misuse? Was it intended only for those who had reached a certain level of knowledge? Or was the concealment simply a way of ensuring its preservation across eras of potential destruction and looting? The AI's reconstruction cannot answer these definitively, but it has provided the framework for asking them in a more informed way than ever before. What we are left with is an understanding that this chamber is as much an intellectual artifact as it is a physical one. It is not merely a space to be entered, but an idea to be engaged with. Its decoding is a reminder that the past still holds dialogues we have yet to join. Conversations in which we are not the first participants, but perhaps only the latest in a line stretching back through millennia. And in a way, that is the most revolutionary aspect of all. The chamber does not simply tell us about the people who built it. It reflects back something about ourselves. It shows that curiosity, precision, and the drive to leave a legacy that outlasts death are constants of the human story. It also suggests that we are now entering a phase where our tools allow us to see the past not as a static backdrop to modern life, but as an active partner in shaping our future. What the AI uncovered in the hidden chamber of the Great Pyramid not only reframed the purpose of this singular monument, but also reshaped the way we think about the ambitions of ancient civilizations. The immediate effect of decoding its layout was to strip away centuries of presumption that monumental architecture was always about the commemoration of rulers or the storage of treasures. Here, the treasure was not gold, but a structured arrangement of space itself, an intentional shaping of reality to preserve concepts beyond the reach of linguistic decay. One of the most striking features in the AI's model was the chamber's curvature, or rather, its absence. It appeared deceptively simple: 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. But when measured at sub-millimeter precision, none of these surfaces was truly flat. Each was infinitesimally bowed, creating a barely perceptible convexity. At first glance, such detail might seem irrelevant. Yet when the AI tested the acoustic and optical properties of this geometry, the significance became clear. These slight curves deflected standing sound waves into overlapping paths, creating interference patterns that shifted depending on the position of the sound source. A whisper in one corner might be inaudible in another, while a tone generated at the exact center of the floor would spiral outward with unnatural persistence. The architecture itself acted as an instrument, finely tuned for someone who knew how to play it. Light behaved no less mysteriously. Even in the absence of deliberate illumination from outside, the reflective qualities of the stone combined with the curves to create gradients of brightness and shadow that seemed to move when one walked through the space. The AI simulation suggested that in the presence of flickering firelight, or perhaps a reflective object designed to concentrate sunlight, these shifting shadows could produce deliberate visual rhythms. They were not merely aesthetic. The patterns corresponded to cycles in celestial movement. The chamber, in other words, might have been designed as a miniature cosmos, a place where one could witness the mechanics of the heavens distilled into a room of stone. This precision raises important questions about the capabilities of the pyramid's builders. For such effects to function exactly as intended, the construction process would have required not just a high degree of craftsmanship, but a deep understanding of material science. Different blocks within the chamber were subtly varied in density, possibly selected from quarries with distinct mineral compositions. When modeled in detail, the AI discovered that these variations subtly altered the resonance of each surface, allowing the builders to tune the chamber in much the same way one might tune the body of a string instrument. That such intentionality could exist without modern tools forces a reconsideration of how ancient engineers sourced and manipulated their materials. The AI's decoding also hinted at a layer of complexity invisible to anyone approaching the chamber with human senses alone. By analyzing the electromagnetic properties of the stone, the algorithms identified trace alignments with Earth's natural geomagnetic field. The placement of certain blocks seemed to amplify or channel these subtle fields, a feature that would have gone entirely unnoticed without modern sensors. Whether this was meant to have a physiological effect on visitors, or whether it was simply part of an observational experiment, remains uncertain. What is clear is that the builders were working on scales both grand and minute, shaping space in relation to planetary forces. Perhaps most compelling was the discovery of what the AI termed positional markers, minute protrusions and indentations in the stone that formed no obvious pattern to the naked eye. When plotted in three-dimensional space, however, these markers formed a scaled projection of a section of the night sky as it would have appeared thousands of years ago. This projection did not match the more widely known celestial alignments of the pyramid as a whole. Instead, it focused on a narrow band of stars near the galactic center. That choice could suggest a very specific purpose, perhaps a ritual, perhaps an observational calibration, perhaps even an encoded statement about humanity's place in the cosmos. The fact that these markers were concealed inside an undiscovered chamber implies an intention for them to remain hidden until the right interpretive tools existed. Without the precision scanning technologies available today, these would have been dismissed as imperfections in the stone. In a sense, the chamber contained its own discovery protocol. It held information that could not be unlocked without a civilization capable of mapping the heavens with scientific accuracy and projecting them into a three-dimensional model for comparison. Even more fascinating was the realization that the chamber's placement within the pyramid was not arbitrary, but acted as a focal point for gravitational load paths. It sat exactly where the stresses of the entire structure converged and dissipated. This meant the room was both physically protected and structurally integral. The builders had engineered a monument to last tens of thousands of years without collapse, and they had used the most secure part of that monument as the vault for their most sophisticated message. This layering of structural necessity and symbolic intent speaks to a worldview in which the practical and the philosophical were inseparable. The AI's analysis also provided insight into the construction sequence. By comparing the composition and orientation of blocks in and around the hidden chamber, it inferred that this space was among the first to be built. It was not added midway through construction. Rather, the pyramid was raised around it, protecting it from the outset. This choice meant that the chamber's survival was not a matter of luck. It was a deliberate act of preservation. The builders must have understood the vulnerability of such an intricate space and taken steps to shield it for as long as possible. What stands out in all of this is the absence of overt inscription. There are no written instructions, no direct clues in hieroglyphic form. Everything is conveyed through proportion, geometry, and alignment. This reliance on universal constants rather than cultural symbols transforms the chamber into something far more enduring than a carved message in a now-dead language. It becomes a bridge across time, accessible to any society advanced enough to measure, calculate, and observe. Such design philosophy has implications far beyond archaeology. If knowledge can be embedded in physical form in ways that transcend the limitations of language, then perhaps modern humanity should reconsider how it preserves its own discoveries. Data stored on magnetic disks and in cloud servers is vulnerable to technological obsolescence and physical decay. But principles embedded in architecture, if chosen carefully, could persist through catastrophe and cultural collapse, waiting for rediscovery. The Great Pyramid's hidden chamber may thus serve as a model for a kind of knowledge preservation that is resilient against the erosion of time. In the days following the AI's full reconstruction, researchers from disciplines as varied as anthropology, quantum physics, architecture, and cognitive science began studying its implications. Some focused on the chamber as a potential sensory experiment, others on its role in ancient cosmology, and still others on its engineering significance. What united them was the sense that the space was deliberately multifunctional. It could serve as a ceremonial site, an observatory, a mathematical repository, and a sensory chamber all at once, depending on how its features were engaged. In many ways, the chamber represents the pinnacle of an integrative approach to knowledge, a seamless fusion of art, science, and spirituality. It reflects a worldview in which there was no hard division between empirical observation and symbolic meaning, between function and beauty. The same curved wall that enhances acoustics also mirrors celestial arcs. The same light shaft that produces seasonal illumination also marks the passage of astronomical cycles. Each element is layered, serving multiple roles without sacrificing harmony. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on AI decoding Pyramid's chamber? What do you expect? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.